Hi, Reverend Naomi King here, and I'm back to this section from Matthew chapter 22, verses 36 to 40, which has Jesus answering this question, "Teacher, what's the greatest commandment in the law?" And Jesus replies, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." And he's referencing Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 5, and Leviticus chapter 19, verse 18. Love yourself is the first video I talked about. Loving your neighbor is the second. And now we come to what can be easy or challenging depending on our relationship with a sense of the holy. Loving God with all our heart and all our mind and all our soul. Now, what Jesus is describing today, we might call a flow state, because the fact is most of us are thinking about a bunch of other things at the same time as we're listening to something, or we're reading something, or we're attending to something else, or we're feeling a whole bunch of things. And that constant dialogue internally means all my mind, all my soul, and all my heart isn't actually focused on God. The only time that we drop into that kind of full attentiveness, where everything else drops away, is in wonder, true experiences of awe and wonder, deep, deep gratitude. Not, "Oh, thanks for passing me the salt," but deep gratitude, which verges on the edge of wonder, and flow states that are like meditation or prayer. Prayer and meditation being two different spiritual practices that help us suspend time. The time part of our brain starts to drift away and goes offline, and just lets us be in this present, suffused. And again, it's a way of dropping into awe and wonder. So we come back again and again to this ground of awe and wonder as the way towards loving the holy. Now, we can have lots of different languages for the holy. There might be one name that is very attractive to you. There might be a name unnamed that is attractive to you. There may be a sense of the holy in all of life around you and in you. And there may be a sense of the holy as a separate being. And if you've been hurt enough by the holy, there's a really good probability that this is a hate relationship you have. So much so as you don't want to even sit down and consider the name, in which case, good on you for making it this far into the video. But this is about love and dropping into and expanding that flow state of love and awe and wonder. So how do we do that? Well, as I've mentioned, many people find prayer to be that way. Some people don't. So if the words of prayer are the things that you hang on, like it has to be said a particular way, there has to be a particular wording, or you're engaged in primarily with intercessory prayer, that is, you're asking for things, either for somebody else or for yourself, then that's not the prayer I'm talking about. I'm talking about contemplative prayer, prayer where we're sitting with what is, and we're opening ourselves towards the holy. Now, some Christians perform this with the Jesus prayer, where they're sitting and touching hand to heart, remembering Jesus' name, over and over again. And some people do this with rosaries, with prayer beads. Some people do this with malas when they're not talking to Christian deities. Some people do this with breathing in the various 99 or more names of God, And Islam recognizes 99 in part because when you hold the palms up, this makes 99 as a set of numbers to look at. So when we hold the hands in prayer, we can look and say, it's at least 99 names. Fact is, from my perspective, the holy is bigger than anything I can encompass in my brain. And so I might focus on a particular quality that's really important to me and drop into breathing with that quality. And maybe I'm praying about that quality. Praying for, say, compassion. So as I enter in this state of prayer, opening my heart to compassion. And I might consider the works of compassion around me. What are some moments that I noticed this week of compassion? The presence of the holy in action through people. What are some times that I myself was moved, and why? How good is that experience when somebody is compassionate to me? When I've really needed a compassionate shoulder, hand, moment, presence. How does that feel in my body? And then here, dwelling in this space, gliding into the heart of compassion. Now I might give thanks for the compassion I've experienced, for the opportunities to practice compassion, and for the visible signs and actions of compassion in the world around me. And then end that prayer with the words that I like to use to end that prayer. My words might be different from yours, and that's okay. What's the difference between that as a prayer and meditation? Well, in meditation, I'm not necessarily going to guide myself through that practice. I might turn in each of those, or to each of those, as they naturally arise in my brain. I could be sitting and breathing. I might have chanted before I sit and breathe, such as Om Mani Padme Hum. There's a jewel in the heart of the lotus, which is compassion. And I might have even that mudra to help me focus. So I drop in. Maybe I don't. I drop in to that breath. And each time breath and mind wander, returning to compassion, or the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. This is less about visualization and more about what arises inside the mind, the heart, the spirit. And then I might mark the end of my meditation. Perhaps it's with a bell. Perhaps it's with another mantra or repetition of mantra. And return outside of myself. Those flow states which are so much part of wonder and awe, are part of how we fulfill this loving our God with all our heart, with all our mind, and with all our soul. Your understanding of divinity may be different than mine. That understanding is part of what makes this world so wonderful. The fact that we are different, that we have different languages of reverence, that we have different ways of worship, that we have different practices. And of course, my own practices have been deeply, deeply informed by many other people's practices. I am informed greatly by many Hindu and by Buddhist practices, and also by many Muslim practices. These have been tremendously important to me. And then the earth-centered, nature-centered communities of practice. Some of those are indigenous to North America, and some of those are indigenous to Europe. All of those have taught me more about how to love more fully, how to be more fully present with what is, and how to turn my heart, my mind, my soul to this work of love, to transform myself, to make a better community, and to be part of healing in this world. Thanks for joining me today.